Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, your ultimate destination for everything that goes bump in the dark. This is where your fan-submitted stories come to life, shared and explored right here on the show. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, don't forget to visit paranormalnightshift.com and grab your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado. It's the first ebook in our thrilling series featuring Buck Freeman, the one-of-a-kind, time-traveling paranormal investigator. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now, on to today's story. This one comes from John and is titled The Old School. So dim the lights, settle in, and let's step into the shadows together. When I first started working, it was with my dad. He'd been with the school district for years, cleaning late into the night after everyone else had gone home. My dad was never one to spook easily, the kind of man who always seemed to think he'd seen it all. But even he couldn't deny there was something strange about this old school. The building itself had a way of looming, especially at night. It was built back in the 1920s, and even during the day, it felt like it was holding on to 1,000 secrets. But at night, the place came alive. Or maybe it just came undone. The halls were dimly lit, the kind of darkness that wraps around you, and no matter where you went, shadows seemed to creep along the walls, thick and heavy. My dad was assigned to the old wing, the original heart of the school. He worked until 11 p.m. most nights, long after the last teacher and staff member had left for the night. He'd told me countless times, once the last light's off, that building has a mind of its own. I thought he was just exaggerating. Maybe he was just tired, his mind playing tricks on him. But after a few shifts, I knew exactly what he meant. It was a quiet Wednesday night when I first experienced it. We were working our way through the classrooms, sweeping and wiping down desks. The stillness was unsettling, like the whole building was holding its breath, waiting. Then, out of nowhere, the unmistakable sound of children's laughter echoed down the hall. I froze, my broom mid-sweep, and looked at my dad. He didn't even flinch, just kept on mopping as if nothing had happened. I shook it off, convincing myself it was nothing, maybe just an echo from somewhere outside. But then, a few minutes later, there it was again. Footsteps, light and quick, running down the hall just beyond the door. This time, I could feel my skin prickling. There was no one there. No one who should have been there, anyway. I swallowed hard, looking down the empty corridor, but the sound of footsteps was gone, leaving only the silence that seemed thicker now. When I mentioned it to my dad, he just shrugged. "You get used to it," he said, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "It's been like this for years. You know no kids are here, but every night it's the same thing. Laughter, running, like they're still having recess." I couldn't understand how he could just accept it. But night after night, I realized this was part of the job. One night, I was tasked with cleaning the classrooms on the second floor. It was after 10, and I was moving down the line of rooms, flicking off lights as I finished each one. I came to one door that was already shut, and, figuring I'd missed it, I checked the knob to find it locked. It was strange since we were always supposed to leave the doors open while cleaning to keep track of where we'd been. I was about to walk away when I heard a loud, shuddering slam echo down the hall from another classroom. I walked over, pushing open the door, heart pounding. The room was empty, but the door had shut so forcefully that a framed picture had fallen from the wall, shattering glass across the floor. My dad appeared in the doorway behind me, taking in the scene. "Told you this place has a mind of its own," he muttered, helping me pick up the pieces. Over time, it became almost routine. There were the nights I'd hear kids laughing or a ball bouncing somewhere in the empty gym. There were the doors that seemed to have their own agenda, swinging open or slamming shut, without a breeze to explain it. Once, as I was polishing the glass display cases on the main floor, I noticed a crack in one of the glass panels that hadn't been there a minute before. Then, right before my eyes, the crack spidered, splintering across the glass until the whole panel shattered with a sharp, echoing crack. It felt like the building itself was alive, like it held memories, restless spirits of students and teachers from decades past. I mentioned it to one of the older custodians who'd been working there longer than my dad. His face turned serious, and he lowered his voice as he spoke. "Years back," he said, "a janitor was cleaning one of the stairwells late at night, same time as us, right around 10:30. He felt a sudden, strong push on his back, sent him sprawling down the steps, broke his ankle. He swore. Up and down he felt hands shoving him, but when he looked back, there was no one there." After hearing that, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Every creak, every distant bang felt personal, as if someone wanted me to know they were there. And some nights, there were sounds that made my blood run cold, like the nights I'd hear loud metallic crashes, like the whole building was collapsing. I'd run down the hall, heart racing, expecting to find a pile of debris, only to find the corridor empty, silent. The nights felt longer. I'd rush through my tasks, casting quick glances over my shoulder, my skin prickling with the feeling of unseen eyes. And though I never saw anything solid, there were times I'd catch a flicker in my peripheral vision, a flash of movement at the end of a corridor or a shadow passing across a doorway. By the time I finished each shift, I was exhausted, not just from the work, but from the constant tension, the feeling that at any moment the spirits in that old school might step just a little too close, reveal themselves just a little too clearly. Working in that building taught me something I never expected to learn, a respect, almost reverence for whatever lingers in old places. My dad says the school has its own history, secrets soaked into the walls, and he's probably right. But to this day, I can't shake the feeling that those spirits are still there, laughing, running through the halls in the dead of night, keeping watch over a place they've never truly left. And even though I moved on from that job, a part of me wonders if they're still there, waiting, listening, in the dark. With that being said, John, thank you so much for sharing your incredible story. If you have a story of your own to submit, we'd love to hear it. Just visit paranormalnightshift.com and share it with us. Before we go, let's talk about how you can support the show. By joining us on Patreon, you'll unlock an ad-free experience and gain access to all future journeys of the Dimensional Desperado. But don't worry, if Patreon isn't your thing, you can still subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and YouTube. While you're there, leave us a comment and let us know what you thought about this episode. We'd love to hear your feedback. And don't forget, head over to paranormalnightshift.com to grab your free copy of the first ebook in the Dimensional Desperado series, The Birth of Dimensional Desperado. It's the perfect way to dive deeper into the story. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Paranormal Nightshift. Stay curious, Nightshifters.